KOs in it. And then here's a pull box, and it doesn't have any KOs, and we would actually be punching KOs into that box so that we get our conduits in and out. They don't come, generally, I would say, they don't come with KOs because they don't know what you're using it for. So, first off, box sizing. This is a little more complex than pull boxes, believe it or not, because of the different sizes of the boxes, different sizes of the wires. For a pull box, it's just, we're looking at the size of the conduit that's coming in and coming out. So let's do that in a bit. So, first off, turn to table 314 back 16A, and it shows the box dimensions and the maximum number of conductors that may be installed in a metal box. For plastic boxes and conduit bodies, the cubic inch capacity is marked inside the box. And also with plastic boxes, it may say, oh, this can handle 12 number 14 wires, or 10 number 12 wires, or 8 number 10 wires. It'll give you the actual, the 14, 12, and 10. And then after that, it just gives you the cubic inch capacity. And so we're going to learn how to figure out that cubic inch capacity when we're doing this. So here's the table. Does everybody find that in their code book yet?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so let's look at this table really quick. Okay, so I'm just gonna put a line underneath it. Okay, so this right here, 4 by 1.5 inch square box. Okay. It gives you the cubic inch capacity is 21 cubic inches. And it can tell you, for example, you can have 9 number 12 wires or 10 number 14. This is what we call a standard 4S box. So if you went to Home Depot and you were buying a standard 4S box, whether it's got brackets or not, it's going to be 4 by 1.5 inches. And we call it 4S because it is 4 inches square. Okay? Then you have the 4 by 2 1/8, that's a 4S deep box. So this is a deep. And by the way, that's all I use. Is if I'm doing a job, and this is the standard, and the 4 by 1.25 inches is what we call a shallow. Now, the only reason I would use a shallow box is if I didn't have the depth in the wall for my box to fit. For, let's say, example, there was a plumbing pipe behind it. And if I try to put in a 4S box, it would protrude from the drywall. So I couldn't use a 4S standard, I'd have to use a shallow box. But as for when I'm actually doing work, I use nothing but a 4SD. That's what I start with. Boom. And then if I think I'm having an issue, I come to the 5SD, which is the 4/11/16 by 2 1/8. So this is a 5SD. So when I was doing electrical and I was doing metal boxes, I would start with the 4SD because I knew for 99% of the time it's not going to be an issue for me. And then if it becomes an issue, I go straight to the 5SD. And what did that do?
Give you more room.
Well, not only does it give me more room, but the whole thing is I only had to stock pretty much 2 boxes in my service truck. I have a 4SD and I have a 5SD. And that will handle the work that I'm doing. And the only time I would go with a regular 4S or a 4S shallow is if I had issues with space in the wall because of other protrusions. Because you could have a pipe or a vent or anything that could get in the way, and you may not be able to get these deeper boxes set in the wall properly. So just as a rule of thumb, like I would say, I would start off with the 4SD, and then if it wasn't big enough, I'd go to the 5SD.
So it's always better to use the 4D.
I was thinking also because, like, let's say another electrician wants to come and do work. He's able to add more wire, I'm assuming?
Yeah, you can add more wire, and there's more
why the extra.
space, and it's easier, especially when you're trying to fit stuff into a box. Sometimes the boxes can get kind of crowded, and it's hard to get all the devices to sit right because of the wires and everything else. So the more room you have, the better. So, like I said, for my recommendation, I would say I always start with a 4SD, but if that's not big enough, go to a 5SD. Now, years back, I was doing a job, and I had a standard 4S box that was already existing, and I had 3 conduits in it, and I had maxed it out to the 9 wires. And I'm like, let's see what the inspector says. And I asked the inspector, I goes, you didn't even open up that box to even look at how many wires I have in there. And he goes, I don't have to. He goes, I saw 3 conduits. And each conduit should have at least 3 wires in it, so that's 9, so I'm good. If there was 4 conduits in there, then I'd ask you to open up and look at it. So that's just kind of like a rule of thumb that I found out how inspectors did it. Because there's different things that you're going to learn tonight, like if the wire passes through, it counts as 1. If the wires splice together, it counts as 2, and so on. But for real world applications, if you're doing metal boxes, I would go straight on minimum box 4SD. And then if I had more than 4 conduits in it, I'd go to a 5SD. And that's how I did it. And I never had an issue. I never even had to look at this chart. But if you look at the chart, so here you have a 4S shallow box. I can get 8 number 12s in there. A 4S standard box, 4 by 1.5 inches, I can get 9, and 4S deep I can get 13. When I go to a 5S box, if I go to a 5S deep, I can get 18 number 12s in there. So now this chart works really well if all the wires are the same size in the box. Sometimes you may have number 12 wires, number 10 wires, and number 14 wires all in the same box. So then you have to go to the next chart, which gives you the volume allowance. So if you're looking here, let's look at a 4S deep. What's the cubic inch capacity of a 4S deep box?
30.3.
30.3. 5S deep.
42.
42. Okay, everybody see that? That's the actual cubic inch capacity, because the wires themselves have a minimum cubic inch capacity. So when you're looking in your code book, right underneath this table should be this table, 314-16B. So if you look, a number 14 wire is 2 cubic inches, number 12 is 2.25, number 10 is 2.5, number 8 is 3, and so on. So the larger the wire, the more cubic inch capacity it requires. Does everybody see how to use both of these tables?
On the second table, would you would count that up for each conductor, correct?
Yeah, okay, so let's say I had, let's just do this for fun. Let's say I had 8 number 14 wires. 3 number 12 wires. And I had 2 number 10 wires. So I would go to this chart. Number 14 is 2 inch. 8 times 2 is 16. Number 12 is 2.25. I got 3 of those. So that's 6.75, right? I'm doing the math right.
Yeah.
On the top of my head. And I got 2 number 10s, which are 2.5, so that's 5. And then if I add all that up, I got 16 plus 6 is 22 plus 5. So I would have 27.75 cubic inches of capacity that I would need. So then I could go back and what did I say I needed? How much? 27?
Yeah, 27.
Yes, 27.5.
Okay. So I can get away with a 4S deep
Or standard.
or a 5S standard.
Standard.
So which one would I go for? I'm going to go for the 4S deep, bigger.
Okay, Andy, you haven't even brushed your teeth.
So that's how that works. Okay, so here are the 6 steps, and also if you go to files, you will find a box sizing PDF has all these 6 steps down. So you can like open up that file at the same time while you look at what I'm doing. But you want to determine the number of each size of conductor entering the box. A conductor that is looping through the box without splicing counts as 1. If it's spliced, it counts as 2. Any conductor coming into the box and terminating there counts as 1. You add 1 conductor for a fixture stud, 1 for a fixture hickey, and 1 conductor if the box has built-in cable clamps. Doesn't matter how many clamps are in the box, and they're all sized the same as the largest conductor in the box. So if I have number 12, number 14, and number 10, and I have either one of these, a fixture stud, a fixture hickey, or a cable clamp, then I would count that as a number 10 wire, which is 2.5. Then you would add 1 conductor for all the equipment grounding conductors. So all your grounding conductors count as 1. Now this is where I don't get it, and I don't know the reason by it, and I haven't found any answer from people that I've asked, but except for an isolated grounding conductor. Now, an isolated grounding conductor is a separate conductor that goes from the ground bus directly to an isolated outlet. And it won't have any other ground on there, but for some reason, you have to count that separately. And all of the grounding conductors are sized as the largest. So if you had a number 10, a number 14, and a number 12 Romex, your grounding conductor would be counted as the number 10 conductor, because that's the biggest conductor in there. If you just had 12 and 14, it would be what? Number 12. Okay? So all your equipment grounding conductors, regardless of their size, you count them as 1. And like I said, don't even worry about the isolated grounding conductor. That's really not important because rarely do. I've only put in an isolated ground maybe twice in my whole career. So it's not an issue that comes around. Then we add 2 conductors for each strap or yoke containing 1 or more devices. Okay, so I'm not sure. Can everybody see what I'm showing right now?
Yes.
This receptacle. Okay, this is what we call a yoke. Okay, and this is a duplex receptacle. There's 2 receptacles here. One on the top, one on the bottom. It could be a single receptacle. It's not how many devices that are on that, it's how many straps or yokes, okay? Now a strap is just a flat bar. This happens to be what we call a yoke. So this contains 1 or more devices. It could contain 3. I've seen these things where they got 3 switches or even 4 switches on them. But you're counting the strap or device, not how many devices there are on that strap or yoke. Got it? And then that calculation is determined by the size of the largest conductor connected to the device. So if this receptacle had number 14 wire on it, what would I put in as its actual size for the calculation?
It was just 14, right?
Okay, what's the size for number 14?
2 inch.
Huh?
2 inch.
2 cubic inches, not 2 inches.
Right.
It's 2 cubic inches. All the boxes are in cubic inch capacity.
Got it.
So that's 2 cubic inches, right?
Yes, sir.
So I had 2 of those. So how many cubic inches if this was number 14?
8 cubic inches.
What?
4 cubic inches.
Really? You got to go back to 119. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay? Carlos, you're killing me.
I got excited, man.
I know. Okay. So what if this was number 12?
Number 12. 2,
And I had it on
2 and 1/4 cubic inches.
No.
12.
What's the size for number 12? 2.25, right?
Yes.
And I have to count 2, so that's 4.5. So
Yes.
that's how you figure out the device size. And it depends on the size of the wire that goes on the device. Even though this is the same device, I could have number 12 on it or I could have number 14 on it, but if I have 14 on it, it's only 4 cubic inches. But I have number 12 on it, it's 4.5 cubic inches. Got it?
Got it.
All right,
Thank you.
we'll put that away. Then you total the steps 1 through 4 of the different sizes of conductors and multiply them each by their cubic inch capacity shown in 314-16B. You add the cubic inch capacities for each size together, and then you select the box. So, let's do this one. You have a 14.2 and a 14.3, total of 5 conductors. You have cable clamps, they count as 1. You got the strapper yoke, that counts as 2. And you have another strapper yoke, counts as 2. And then you have your ground wires that all count as 1 because there's no. And by the way, any type of splice like this pigtail for the ground, we don't count pigtails. So go ahead and tell me what the cubic inch capacity of this box should be. And that's all number 14, and it's all 2 cubic inches per wire. And then go back to those 6 rules that I gave you on how to count it. Can someone come up with the volume allowance for this box?
I think that would be 20 cubic inches.
I hear 20. Do I get 22? Can I hear 24? Gimme. Okay, I'm not a very good, what do they call those guys?
Auctioneer.
Auctioneer. All right, so let's take a look.
No.
So we have a 14.2 and a 14.3. So that's 5 conductors right there. Now 14.2 means that it's number 14 Romex and it's got 2 conductors, not including the ground. We're not talking about the ground. 14.3 has like a black, red, and white. That's 3 conductors, so we have a total of 5 conductors for the wires that are coming in here. Then we look at the cable clamps. All cable clamps in the box. Doesn't matter if there's 1, 3, 5, or 6, whatever. All cable clamps count as 1 conductor, and that is based on the largest conductor in the box, which happens to be number 14. Then we have 2 grounding wires, one from each 12 or 4, the 14.2 has a ground wire and the 14.3, but all grounds count as 1 conductor. Then we have our straps and yokes, and here we have 2 yokes. They both have number 14, so that's 4 conductors. So we have a total of 11 conductors total. So our actual cubic inch capacity is 22 inches. Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so then we would need at least a 4S deep or a 5S box. And again, that's why I say, when I was doing electrical work, the smallest box I would put in was a 4S deep. When I'm roughing a house, and then as you're roughing a house, things happen and you're like, oh, I gotta add this or I gotta do this, and boxes may change, and then I would just go, if a 4S deep wasn't big enough, I'd go to a 5S deep. The only reason I would use the other boxes, like the 4,
Muted, Professor.
You cut out.
audio
Huh?
as well.
You cut out.
Did I cut out?
After you said only reason,
Okay, where did I cut out?
The only
That's it.
reason.
the only reason.
Okay, so let's go back. Like I said, I would always start off with a 4SD box. And the only reason I would go to a shallower box if I didn't have the room in the wall space for it. Because you could have, you know, like 2x4s back to back and sideways, and you couldn't get in that size of a box, then I'd do that. Or but there was like a plumbing line in the way and I couldn't put in a 4SD. But like I said, I always start with 4SD, and then if the 4SD didn't do it, I'd go straight to a 5SD. It just makes life really simple. And so there you can see the cubic inch capacities. And actually the 4SD has a little bit bigger capacity than just standard 5S. But like I said, both of these boxes work, but if the 4SD didn't work, I wouldn't go to a 5S box, I'd go straight to a 5SD.
And the yolks count as two, I noticed.
Yeah,
Two conductors
on the size of the wire that's on it.
on the size of the wire. Okay.
So for example, if you have number 14 on the switch,
Right.
that only counts as 4 cubic inches. And if you have number 12 on a receptacle,
Right.
same box,
It'd be 4.5.
that's 4.5, because